Oh no! The PlayStation 4 lifecycle is coming to an end! Oh! What's up everybody, it's 𝐒𝐨𝐽 bringing you the awesome stuff today and beyond. So a couple days ago there has been some pretty interesting stuff coming from Sony Interactive Entertainment. The CEO John Kodera, who basically replaced Andrew House, has been talking about the future of PlayStation 4. And in that stuff he touched on a couple of things here. Some of the stuff that he touched on is the PlayStation VR and PlayStation Vue. In PlayStation VR he talked about how the PlayStation VR wasn't doing so well as he expected to be for obvious reasons, because we all know that the PlayStation VR isn't that great. People are gonna dislike on that comment, because I know some do like the PlayStation VR, but realistically it is not that great. The other problem with the PlayStation Vue here, for those that don't know what PlayStation Vue is the streaming service, kind of like Netflix, Hulu, and that's what it is. It's on the PlayStation. And the problem that he touched on is that there's a lot of competition. Again, obviously it's not going to do so well, but I don't know how Sony is going to do well in that department. I mean, they could try seeing other ways that they can improve on, but it's very competition intense, because you have Netflix, you have Amazon, you have Hulu, and so on and so. So I have no idea how Sony is going to go ahead and touch on PlayStation Vue. But one of the most interesting things that he did talk about has got to be the end life cycle of the PlayStation 4. And this has a lot of people upset. And I totally understand where a lot of people are becoming upset about this, and it raises a lot of red flags here, because I don't blame you for being upset, because some of the people that have recently purchased the PlayStation 4 are also upset about this. And again, I don't blame you, but let me go ahead and explain a few things that might want you to go ahead and understand the whole situation here. So first off, I want you guys to understand that when the PlayStation 4 got released, the PlayStation 4 got released in 2013, and here we are in 2018. That is a total of 5 years in the console, and in a typical console life cycle is between 5 to 6 years. But if we were to go ahead and dig a little bit deeper into the story, and we were to go ahead and follow game journalists such as the Wall Street Journalist and look at Mr. Takashi in his tweet, he says Sony Interactive Entertainment head Kodera told analysts and investors that the period until March 2021 would be when PlayStation 2 crouched down once to grow further in the future. So what does that mean? Now, I want you guys to go ahead and take everything that is based on that tweet and everything that I'm saying in this video with a grain of salt here. What is basically being said on that tweet is there is more life into this PlayStation, and I totally see it. And the reason is because there's a lot of games that's coming to the PlayStation 4. There's still the console has a lot of life to give to its gamers, to its market. There's a lot of life into it. I mean, for crying out loud, you have Last of Us, you also have Spider-Man. There's pretty good, decent amount of games that's coming into the console, so there's a lot of life into it. So being able to go ahead and give it an additional 3 years, say until 2021, and you add it to where we are right now, that's a total of 8 years. That is a lot, because again, you have to understand that in a typical life cycle of any console generation is between 5 to 6 years, and we have all experienced that before. We have experienced it with the original console PlayStation, the Xbox, the original Xbox that is, but things got a little bit different with the PlayStation 3 and the Xbox 360 era, and it lasted a little bit longer than normal, because the problem with the era of the PlayStation 3 and the Xbox, if you were to go ahead and go back, that era, especially in the United States, there was like the Depression era, and that's why, you know, the console itself sticked a little bit more longer in the market. And only, I believe, in 2018 it started to, in 2008 it started to reignite again. Not 2018, my god. But in 2008 it started to reignite again, and more life got pushed into these consoles. And these consoles, if you were to go ahead and accumulate from when they actually got released to when it died off, it's between 7 to 8 years, and that is a long time for these consoles. And here's another thing that I want you guys, for those who are, say, they've purchased their PlayStation 4 when it first got launched, okay? And it doesn't matter which age you are, but I want you to consider the following on this part. Say you purchased the PlayStation 4 back in 2013, okay? 2013, and then add 8 years, say until 2021. That's when, say, you are going to go ahead and buy the next console. That is a total of 8 years of PlayStation 4, and 8 years added to your life when the day you first got that console. So if you were 12 when you and your family went to the store and actually purchased the console for yourself, so man, that's from 12, you're 20. I mean, you're 20 years old. Think about that. Let that sink in. And again, 8 years up until 2021 is a very, very long time. So yeah, there is a lot of life into the PlayStation 4. It's not going to end very soon. But I will say that I do understand the problem with some people who purchase the PlayStation 4 Pro, because in my personal opinion, I still say, and I have discussed this with other people as well, is that I still feel that the PlayStation 4 should have been the launch console, because the addition to it were very, very minor, and I am not a fan of minor upgrades, like little minor upgrades onto a console, because in my personal opinion, I believe it's complete bullshit. And the console itself, the PlayStation 4, should have been with the 4K, the whole, and those little tiny stuff should have been part of the launch. Because looking back at the PlayStation 4, and especially these little minor upgrades, kind of remind me of an old console, and it's a favorite console of mine, and I have discussed this with a group. It kind of reminds me of this. Who here remembers this guy? If you don't know what that is the 32X. And believe it or not, back then, back in the day, this basically was to go ahead and sit on top of your Sega Genesis. And what it's supposed to do is basically, according to Sega back then, is that this thing is supposed to, once you add it to your console, is going to it's going to be the next generation console. And the problem with this guy right here, because it's an add-on, in exactly 1 year, I kid you not, that is when the Sega Saturn got released, and everybody was like, what the hell just happened? And that is the problem with these little minor upgrades, and I'm not a big fan of these guys. And also I understand that some people say, oh, because now consoles are becoming like cell phones. No, they're not. And I don't believe, the whole idea of consoles becoming like cell phones, where they have little few tweaks here and there. You're throwing out between like $400 or $300 on a console, and then you're telling me that it's gonna have these few upgrades here and there. No, I won't accept that. The only time that I would accept something like that is if it was something as a big upgrade. And a very good example, in my personal opinion, as a really good upgrade, has got to be the difference between the Nintendo 3DS and the new Nintendo 3DS, where, yeah, that's a complete upgrade. But going back to the problem itself with those that purchased the PlayStation 4, I really feel bad for these guys, because even though it is a niche market, because these guys were hoping that here's a PlayStation 4, it has a better processor, it now does 4K, and then yet in 3 years time, I'm not gonna go ahead and use it. And that's the thinking process, and I totally see with them, and I don't blame them at all. The only console, in my personal opinion, I also feel is got to be the next generation console, has got to be the Xbox One X, because if you were to look at the specs of the Xbox One X, it's ridiculous. And I honestly feel that the Xbox One X it should go a lot more further than PlayStation 4, because it has it's a powerhouse of a console. If you look into the roots of what the Xbox One X has to offer, it's literally a powerhouse, and it's a lot more better than the PlayStation 4, honest to God. But here's the thing, we are in 2018, And this is a very, very interesting time that we're living in, especially with how the console is changing. And we're gonna go ahead and see what is next. And this is something that I've been discussing with my groups about what is the next thing that Sony and Microsoft are going to do, because literally these two are giants when it comes to the console market. And I've always wondered, what is the next best thing? Is it going to be, you know, an enhancement of PlayStation VR? Is it that, are they gonna go ahead and enhance their console to be more portable, just like, you know, having AAA games on a handheld, just like exactly what Nintendo is doing with their Switch? I think that would be a feasible thing, that, you know, if Sony was to go ahead and reignite the handheld market and not killing it off like what they did with the PlayStation Vita. But it would be very interesting that if they actually go in that department, in that market, where, like, just like how Nintendo with their Switch is a hybrid, it does both, you know, a console and at the same time it's more of a handheld. I would really like to see that as something as the next phase in PlayStation, because that would be awesome. So here's a question I have for you guys. The end life cycle for PlayStation 4 is great for 2021. For me, I think it's great. It's a perfect timing when they release the next console. But I want to hear your thoughts about this, and also want to hear you guys, what do you think is going to be the next phase in PlayStation and Xbox, and what is the next best thing here? Is it, like, again, I go back to, is it going to be VR? Is it going to be taking the console and becoming, you know, both a handheld and a console at the same time? I'm interested to know about your thoughts in this topic. This is 𝐒𝐨𝐜𝐿 signing off, and I'll see you guys next time.